So picture this, a journalist is turning in an expose. A discussion on corruption of the ones who swore to keep us safe. But their editor is disgusted. They shut the door and show their face. Give the standard script of staying in your lane, never making waves, of learning how to recognize your place. And tells them if they'd like to keep their nearly decent pay, the message must be gutted, the article replaced. Wake up that next day, the journalist has boiled all their morals into rage. They showed up in the night, had some guts, had their way, put the expose on full display, front fucking page. While overnight the journalist is painted in a frame and smeared by any agency with anything to gain. And every single accolade they'd earned would be reclaimed, leaving every other journalist afraid to speak their name. The populace acknowledged it, wasn't swayed. Thought they read about it once before, it's all the same. And so the journalists will spend a decade starved and caged, and all of us were watching and yet nothing changed. All of us were watching and yet nothing changed. All of us were watching and yet nothing changed. All of us were watching and yet nothing changed. All of us were watching and yet nothing changed.
Orale, everybody. There's a lot of shit happening.
You can say that again, sister. Good
Yeah.
Lord.
I mean, what is it happening? There's a lot happening in the world.
We're going to war with another nuclear power. Woo! Let's go.
Yeah, everybody on the timeline suddenly turned
Is a neocon?
Yeah, everybody on the timeline suddenly turned to neocons. Well, not you guys, of course, but everybody on the timeline suddenly turned to neocons because Russia did a move that was strategically within their interests, and of
that
course,
they've been
nobody
warning
cares
about.
Yeah, nobody cares about the actual independent, by the way, people of Donbass. Because yes, fuck you. I'm not following any sort of Russian talking points. Those people are fucking independent, and they've wanted independence from Ukraine. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Such a hot fucking mess, dude. It is really just, and people I really like and respect are not on the right side of this. Not that there's a side necessarily. Listen, when I am against,
I'm on the side of fuck war.
Yes, thank you. And when I talk about the fact that I'm against the United States intervening, it does not mean that I support Putin.
Yeah.
I don't support Putin. I don't support any world leaders.
I don't support Putin. I don't support the fucking president of Ukraine. I sure as hell don't support the puppet president of the US.
No.
I don't fuck with any of these people.
Tara's here. We were having some technical difficulties, but Tara, we made it. Yay!
Yeah,
here, let me take off.
Let me get more
Well, I want to take off the bottom thing too, because that's hiding.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
There we go. That's better. Okay. I like that better.
Hey.
Oh, I like your earrings too, girl. You look hot today.
I try to make it work for World War III. It's hard. With accessorize.
Gotta look good when I dodge the draft.
Dodge the draft fashion. I like it.
I don't even want to call it dodging. I just want to say I'm a weave the draft because if they try to come at me with it, I'm just gonna be like, eat a dick.
Yeah.
Well, I'm old for it.
Me too. I'm too old.
What I was gonna say is that it's hard to know how to look when your consent is being manufactured.
Yeah.
To go into war. Anyway. Yes. So we have a lot to cover, and your title is so, and in fact, I was using, in an argument with a shitlib, I was using the example of all the things that Julian Assange brought up in 2014, and earlier in WikiLeaks brought forward, years ago. Anyway, that's into it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we all
Julian
do.
Assange is still in prison. It's fine. It's fine, guys. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, he's exposed tons of shit. There's still people who are trying to paint him as a Russian, and that, well, why doesn't he ever expose anything on Russia? Okay, so listen, this is my public service announcement. Okay, if you go to WikiLeaks.org, there's a handy dandy little search tab there. You can type in a keyword, and it will bring up all of the leaks that contain that word. And it's very simple and easy to use, and you should go try that. And you might choose to enter in a word like Russia, for example, to see what WikiLeaks has released on Vladimir Putin and Russia.
I'm looking down here at Twitter. I'm trying to find your posting of this so I can share it on my thing.
Yeah, we were like, Lori was ranting about something and then had to like stop to like go share the link in the Discord so that people we're really good at this. We are.
Yeah.
Hey, Missy, check my share screen.
Oh.
Because we're doing it live. So
we are doing it live.
I'll start from the beginning. Here's a WikiLeaks homepage. Now,
look, see that thing right there? Search.
If I go
super handy.
If I go to the no, I don't even have to search it because I can go to the intelligence tab, scroll down about 2 inches, and what's that?
That says Russia. What? That cannot possibly be information exposed by WikiLeaks on Russia. That doesn't exist. Assange is a Russian. That's what everybody keeps telling me.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, I actually, I think I'm going to take, actually, I probably won't. Actually, I won't. I was going to say I was going to take a break for a day or two because it's my birthday Saturday, and I really didn't want to war on my birthday.
Yeah.
In fact, I had posted that some weeks ago, but leading up to this, I mean, everyone's acting surprised. They've been preparing. This has gone from political theater to war theater, in my estimation.
Yeah.
And they pushed Vladimir Putin into a corner as far as like for 8 years, he was asking for the Minsk agreement. He was asking that Ukraine not be considered. He was asking, making sure that there was, not going to be nuclear weapons on the borders of Russia, right? Pointing. Yeah. I mean, it's not a shock. And what Biden said, which I find particularly offensive, is he said they were like made up threats to Russia. That is not true. The security threats are real. 14,000 people have died in those 2 independent breakaway, areas, and 14,000. Like, how can he say that that's not true? That didn't happen. And they were killed by neo-Nazi portions, arms, funded by our taxpayers' money. Their weapons are funded by America. And that's what Julian Assange exposed. He exposed the Maidan. He exposed, all of that, along with some others. So
we just did a coup like in 2014. It's not that long ago. Come on. And everybody today, first of all, I love when everybody pretends to be an expert on something like this when it pops up. You're not an expert. I'm not an expert. But I love the people who are, immediately go to, what we're doing is good, right, and correct, and Putin is evil. And I'm like, do you even realize that you are advocating on the side of literal Nazis? Like, this isn't like joke Nazis. This isn't like, Comrade Misty's a Nazi. This is real Nazi shit.
This is like SS Totenwaffen Lufthansa or what? Yeah, I don't know.
This is Azov Battalion Nazis.
But let's be clear. Let's be clear about something about the narrative. Okay, let's look at propaganda. When you want groupthink, when you want people to think a certain way, I noticed that McFaul and Julia Ioffe they're supposed to be Russian experts, right? And she's from Russia, and she has a very neocon, neolib attitude towards, critical, highly critical. McFaul, we all know, I mean, like, you can just read his tweets, you can see what he wants. They wrote an article together and then she wrote one separately. And the narrative she kept lifting was calling Putin Hitler, which is so offensive. So offensive. But you know why they're doing it? They're doing it because we're funding 4% of the Ukrainian government is neo-Nazis. We're funding those militants that have access to weapons, those weapons. So that isn't disinformation. This is true. This is what all the uproar is about. Civilians were being murdered, children, women that were unarmed, and there were Russian nationals. They weren't allowed to speak their language. They didn't have access to resources. And as far as expertise, well, you know what? I have a law degree. I've studied geopolitics since I was 19 years old. I was working with some of these people. I've been in the room with them. I've heard them with their mics off. I'm telling you I'm talking about the Biden administration. Some of those same people are still there, the same stooges. Peter Dow, he tweeted out the same thing because he worked with his same kind of groups of elites, and their attitude is this. They don't want Russia to become an economic power. Back when I was there, it was right after the Soviet Union. They were hurting. They were coming up as far as like getting, organized. Putin wasn't even on the geopolitical map yet. And I heard conversations where they specifically said, and, I'm a low-level staffer, so you hear stuff all in the rooms because they talk like you're not there. And they said, Russia will never have a seat at the table. And they were referring to like that. And that's the old Soviet Union, Cold War, Biden, all of them. That's how they think, McCain back then. And they wanted that to come through to the new. Well, what happened is Russia created a middle class. They were capitalists. They've been moving into the world market. They're making alliances with China. They have access to the Nord Stream 2, helped build that. So all of this is about Nord Stream 2. It's about economic power. And for Russia, it's about, keeping their economic, being in the game, but also it's about security. I mean, they have guns. If you look at the map, they have US and NATO guns around them. And the thing I left out is that NATO promised not to move eastward. And that's why they're whining it and writing, and it's reasonable. And we were getting prepped for all this when Biden kind of let it slip that, we won't do too much if they just take these 2 breakaway regions, right? So they did. And this is political theater to war theater. This is all to gather our consent so they can spend that $787 billion on weapons. And what we're seeing, I think, and this is what we're going to see play out if you look at the very, very big picture and pull back, is we were going from the Western unipolar world to a multipolar world. So in other words, China, Russia, we're going to have a balance, hopefully. Like this is going to set off and trigger events, hopefully not a full-on war, full-scale war between countries. But I think it's going to make us all, it's putting Russia in this position where they can actually say, no, we have boundaries. We actually don't want weapons pointed at our major cities. And that's reasonable.
Yes.
And so I really believe that we are in a shift. We are in a geopolitical shift. It's a chasm. And it'll be interesting to see how the US plays it. Like, are we going to go in all hawkish and do a war?
Probably. Unfortunately, that's our MO. That's what we do.
I think it's going to be a bit of both, honestly, there's going to be an old wing of people who want to remain hawkish, but there's also going to be like this new kind of technocratic class of people that are going to look to adapt to it via like economic means or soft imperialism, etc. So
yeah, and they're already launching sanctions. It's amazing. I think it was Alan McLeod tweeted today. It's amazing how all these Western nations were like super ready to go, like sanctions ready to go, like immediately drop of a hat. It's almost like they were planning for this.
Of course.
It's almost like they had these all ready to go. And yeah, I mean, these sanctions, everybody's talking, Bernie Sanders out there, yeah, we must impose sanctions. AOC's out there, we must impose sanctions. Sanctions hurt the people. They don't hurt Vladimir Putin. They don't hurt the oligarchs. They hurt the people. Sanctions are garbage. That's a trash thing.
Yeah, and they're impervious to them. Some of the elites, they're, regardless of what nation they're from, they're impervious to those kinds of sanctions. You're right. Absolutely. Look at, why aren't we talking about Yemen? Why aren't we talking about Afghanistan? Like 1 million children are going to starve.
Syria. I mean, Somalia.
Syria just got bombed last night again for the 2nd day in a row.
And Yemen's getting bombed right now. Yeah, Somalia too. Yemen's getting bombed right now with weapons made in the US and the UK. But Putin.
What's capturing my attention is all this like rhetoric from libs and calling people traitors like me, like Caleb Maupin, like other RT contributors. And it's like, no, we're trying to give a different perspective. That's all. Make of it what you want. But we're getting fed this propaganda. Like the Julia Eoff article really bothers me because she's an intelligent person and a good writer, and she's using it for evil, in my opinion, because comparing him to Hitler was overstepping her bounds. That was gross, and it's trying to deflect from actual neo-Nazis that are in Ukraine that are harming people. And it's horrible. And what about those people? What about the victims of those people? I don't know.
We don't talk about that. It doesn't fit the narrative. So we don't talk about the neo-Nazis that were arming and funding and training and aiding. We don't talk about that. Just like we don't talk about the fact that we're helping Israel destroy Palestinians. We don't talk about the fact that we're helping Saudi Arabia destroy Yemen. We don't talk about that stuff. It's the pretty picture that we paint, that if we do it, it's good and right and just and the fair thing to do. But if Putin does it, it's the worst thing that's ever happened on earth. Seriously, I said this last night. The fact that there are people who live in the United States who are concerning themselves at all with anything Vladimir Putin is doing is astonishing to me. We have absolutely zero moral authority here. None. We need to get our own house in order. Are you kidding me? Like, we are committing multiple genocides. Our country is participating in multiple genocides, and you got something to say about what Putin's doing? You need to take a step back, look in the mirror. You need to start worrying about what Joe Biden's doing.
Misty, it's funny how you said how like all of a sudden everybody's an expert on Ukraine, and it's like, listen, I'm not an expert on Ukraine.
No.
But I've spoken to people who are. And you know what they've been covering? They've been covering the constant shelling on innocent civilians in Donbass, and how there were regular farmers and like heads of families that were coming into these civilian militias to try and defend their own area. So of course, independence for them would be fucking amazing. It would be like a breath of fresh air. And it's like, that's not, even if it might be a geopolitical move on the part of Putin, like for the people within the region of Donbass, it's a big thing for them. They deserve to be independent and not some political tool for anyone.
Well, yeah, in a buffer zone. And in fact, those two regions, like if you saw the videos, they were celebrating. They were out. And they did request it. And that's the other thing. And the other thing, that all these nuances that they're not covering is that there are, agreements that are made when a region requests assistance and defense. And, they were requested officially, and they did what they did. But like, they're calling it an invasion. And and Vladimir Putin spoke and said, I'm not invading Ukraine, but I am going to secure these borders and help these independent regions. And that's all he said. And he flat out said he's not going to invade. So, but yet we're using the language. What were you saying about soft imperialism? How is that even a thing? What is that in your eyes? I wanted to.
Yeah, to me, it's more via like economic means than all out warfare. Like, it's less of an exertion of military force. And at least with regards to the US, it's less so an exertion of military force and more so kind of these covert actions that we see in trying to manipulate governments to really keep regions specifically in the global south, but all around the world really under their boot. Like something with economic imperialism we see in Haiti,
kind of like what we're doing with Afghanistan, stealing their money. Like that's not, we don't have boots on the ground, but we're stealing their money. We're starving them. That's
the term kind of like soft imperial. I want a different term, because actually in my estimation, like the sanctions, those kinds of things do more harm.
That's true.
Yeah. Working people. And like in Afghanistan, like 1 million children starving. That's not soft imperialism.
But
didn't you hear the war's over? They ended
the war. My God.
Oh, I got so much shit because I refused to say that Joe Biden ended the war. He ended the war. You should be happy about that. No, he didn't end the war. There's no war has been ended. Zero wars ended. None.
No. Where did the troops go? Oh, that's right. They just went to more stations in AFRICOM. Yay.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, we bombed part of Africa last night. Nobody noticed because,
everybody's focused on Putin.
Yeah. In Somalia.
Because they want a bad guy. They want this villain. And I think I'm just hoping Russia hasn't given up like hope of diplomacy with the West, because if I were them, I wouldn't blame them, but it's just, they're closing all the doors. Like when I saw them cancel the summit that was supposed to happen today, right now, between Biden and Putin, I was like, oh, it's on, it's down. Like, that's it. They're closing the doors. When Biden canceled that, he was like, and so, it is going the way it's going to go. I think what's going to happen right now is kind of like a reset of global power structure. And I think the West, rightly so, will have to give some respect to Russia. This isn't Afghanistan where they can go in and carpet bomb. they're going against the nuclear power. So the U.S. needs to think twice before they cut off diplomatic ties.
The United States is not great about thinking first, like the first time. So thinking twice is maybe asking a bit too much there, Tara. I don't know.
I was going to ask you, did you guys hear, I heard most of his speech, but did he double down that they were not going to send U.S. troops anymore to
Biden?
Europe? Yeah.
I haven't seen the speech yet, but I saw somebody talking about on Twitter that he said he wasn't going to. But we don't need to send troops for it to be devastating.
No, we don't. But originally they were talking about it. It was on the table. Then it wasn't. Then it was on. And it was off. So I was just curious where it was finally in that narrative. They also
this is a message I got from a friend, but she said, so Biden said he is deploying all the U.S. troops from Germany and the other European bases to the Baltic states to support the UN allies.
Yeah, Code Pink tweeted that breaking the Biden administration just authorized the deployment of 7,000 more U.S. troops to Europe. We, the people of the United States, must use our voices and say no to war in Ukraine and demand negotiations, not escalation.
Shout out ICU for letting us know and for keeping up with that.
ICU
shit stuff.
Yeah, garbage. Garbage.
So here we go. So it doesn't sound well, and you know what's going to happen? Tension. And then if we can resolve it without any more military, interventions and, skirmishes and such, you watch Biden's team is going to try to come away towards that fall deadline of the midterms and say, see, I'm the hero. I made Vladimir Putin blink. And they're going to be their narrative.
Yeah. 100%.
And, and so I remember, Missy, I was talking to you about this a year ago. And here we are.
And here we are. Here we fucking are. And it's the same playbook. I mean, it's a joke. Like, people joke about it. I've heard people say, oh, it's an election year, there's going to be a war. That's how, if you're in trouble as a president, if your approval ratings are in the toilet, you start a war. And what does that say about us as a society, that we look favorably upon a war? Like, that makes us look at a president more favorably. That's disgusting.
And then 4 years after that, even if the war doesn't start, they're going to use that as an excuse to say, I kept the peace. No, you didn't, Donald Trump.
All of this shit to them. Oh my God, yes. People like Trump supporters out there tweeting, we had 4 years of peace. No, we fucking didn't.
Posobiec.
Yes.
You fucking dumbass neocon bitch.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Shut up.
I'm
get angry
so
about
fired
this
up. Yeah, no. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've been angry all week. Like, I feel like I should apologize to this audience too. I'm sure there's a lot of crossover from other audiences from this week, but holy shit, am I in a bad mood this week? I hate everybody.
Well, because I had a call it was last night. No, the night before. I've been up a lot because, it's the other side of the clock on Russia and other parts. But I had a friend, she's not into politics at all. Like, she's Russian and American, so she has dual citizenship, and she has no political interest. Like, she's an artist and doesn't so she calls me and she goes, I don't understand what's happening, because she was supposed to go back and check on her family and do some things, and she's wondering if she can travel. She's not knowing and close the embassy. It's a mess. Okay. Luckily she has dual citizenship, but still, there's connections, right? So she's asking me, can you explain, how did this happen? And because at her work, people are like being mean to her, like low-key microaggressions. And she's like, look, I didn't start this fucking war. I'm Russian, but I'm like you, I'm here. I don't even know what's going on. So we sat and talked for a while, and I just feel for, what people don't understand is that most regular people are not caught up in the elites, long game, and which I think is more poker than chess. It's not chess. Chess would take analytical skill. This is just fucking poker with our lives and with nuclear weapons.
For profit. It's all a gamble for profit.
Yeah.
You're right. That's a great analogy.
Yeah. And I think that, I just want to make it clear, I've seen a lot of really bad Russophobia online. Just stop it. Stop. That's disgusting. It plays into what the US wants, which is to create an enemy that isn't. And most citizens of a nation are not guilty of genocide. That comes from the elite governments if they do it. And our government is in no position, like you said earlier, Misty, no position.
None.
To call
We are the worst. It's not even close. It is not like Putin has nothing on us. It's not even in the same like universe. It is, we are far and away the absolute worst scum of the earth on planet Earth. And like in history, the United States is atrocious. We are horrible. Seriously, right now, we are literally participating in not one, not two, multiple genocides. Right. We're providing the weaponry. We're arming, aiding, and funding Nazis. I mean, all of this stuff. Like it's astonishing to me. It is that American exceptionalism, though. I think, you know, if we're doing it, then obviously it's good. But if anybody else does it, it's literally the worst thing that's ever happened. And we have to be against it. And it's amazing to see people who consider themselves liberal or left suddenly siding with actual Nazis. Like this is,
I know it's the libs are saying punch Nazis, and then on the other side of it, when you go to Nazis, and they're neo-Nazis. So these are new young men that are just like on a mission, and they're armed, and we provided that. And I mean, because 4% of a government isn't very much, but if they're armed and militant, that's a lot. That's scary. That's
and we've done we've had Moss Robeson on Facts on the Ground a couple of times. He's very informed about the Ukrainian environment, I guess, and United States politics. And we've talked to him about Joe Biden's the way that he's very friendly with the Ukrainian Nazi elements, you know what I'm saying? Which I don't think will surprise anybody. Joe Biden was pretty instrumental in the 2014 coup. He is very racist, and you know what I mean? Like, this is not anything surprising.
His son was on the board of Burisma.
Yeah.
And got paid $40,000 a month.
Yes.
He has investments in oil and gas companies, and he was vice president of the United States. Nobody's looking into the economic corruption of that. It is shocking. And if Julian was still around, that we'd be getting more on that.
Yes, we would. I think about that all the time. What would we know if Julian Assange were free? What would we know? What would we know right now? It would be a lot. We would know a lot. Yeah. And that's frustrating. That's very, very
even
frustrating.
Just a lot of his commentary before he was in Belmarsh is still very pertinent to what's happening now.
Yeah, I mean, he said it's meant to be an endless war. It's not meant to be a successful war. And that is the case every time. It is not meant to be a successful war. It's just meant to be endless. It's just meant to be profit. It's a money laundering scheme. War is a racket. Always, 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 and forever. War is a racket.
War. What is it good?
So I don't know. Where do you think, as far as, the rhetoric I noticed there was a little bit of waveriness with the rhetoric coming from the US, rather than it being all like, it's going to take them a day or two, I think, to gear up. But probably by Monday, they'll have it down. But like, I noticed it wasn't as, I don't know. It was bad, but it wasn't as bad as yesterday. I don't know.
Yeah,
we're going to war tomorrow. I feel like there's, it's just like they're trying to.
Maybe it's one of those where you thought you knew what you wanted, but then you got it, and you were like, "Oh shit." Maybe there's some of that going around.
I think there's some disagreements, is what I'm getting at. I think
yes. Oh yeah.
And between Kamala Harris's team, we all know that there's all big clashes, but her and the president's team, that's been public, and then a bunch of walkouts of staff. But what I'm feeling is like the messaging isn't consistent between like Blinken and I don't know, you know what I mean, and something that's coming out of the White House and stuff. It's not. Blinken seems like the most like hawkish, like let's go to war.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say so,
but I don't know.
I don't know though. I think it's interesting. Like you can see. How, I think everybody's currently trying to figure out the best way to frame it to make it as most personally beneficial. So like, for example, I just happened to pop up here and Ted Cruz was one of the top tweets, and it says Putin was emboldened to invade Ukraine because of catastrophic mistakes made by Joe Biden. So obviously somebody like Ted Cruz is going to try to spin this so that it's Joe Biden's fault. Joe Biden's going to try to spin it like Putin's evil. There's going to be a whole lot of spin happening over the next several weeks. And it's gross. Like the people of Russia and Ukraine are being used, their lives are being used as political fodder. You know what I mean? For empire. And it's gross. And this is how it always goes down. This is how it always goes down.
And you're right. And the Twitter, and we have to remember that a lot of the bots, like I got attacked, Caleb Maupin's being attacked. Like, you saw me get
Caleb Maupin's a white supremacist now.
Oh, I know, right?
Meanwhile,
like, he was the one bringing up the fact that these 14,000 people were killed. But anyway, going back to what I was saying is, because we work at RT, I watched, it was one of another journalist from RT was like, just kind of going through the nuance, but is not pro-Putin at all. Isn't like trying to do that propaganda, nothing like that. Not pro-Biden, not pro-Putin, but just kind of laying out what's going on. Just all kinds of troll bots, like, why are you working for RT and blah, blah, blah. They're the enemy, you're a traitor. And what people have to bear in mind is that's one account with 100 paid bots. Like, they're not real. They're not people.
Yeah.
They have an algorithm of a word, and then they use the word liar, traitor, and they just like spam.
And you deal with that a lot.
Oh yeah. Oh, you got ratioed. No, I didn't. Ratio is when there's like people with opinion. Troll farms coming after him, meaning the Democratic National Committee is worried about something I said. So
yeah.
Fuck
yeah, I deal with that, but on a much smaller scale. You deal with that a lot.
You get hammered sometimes. I've seen that.
I do, but I mean, it's usually not as bad as what you deal with. I mean, there are days that it's bad, but my trolls are dumb though. They're really stupid.
Like, I think the most they always make sexual comments because we're women, right? I think Misty, like,
I don't get a ton of. I get a lot of comments about my looks. I do get that.
I don't get comments about like, oh, you're giving. I won't even say it, but sexual acts.
Yeah.
With certain world leaders, they put that in my DM. They spam my DM with that shit.
Oh, girl, my DMs are closed. Nope.
Well, I leave them open because
I know why you do it, because there are survivors who are often looking to reach out, and I totally get that. My DMs are closed and will remain so.
Yeah.
Like Fiorella has hers open, and I know Glory has hers open because people will send you stories and stuff. If you want to send me a story, tag me in that shit. You don't need my DMs. You don't need my DMs. I'm not interested. Have you seen my Twitter feed alone is bad enough? Can you imagine if my DMs were open?
Yeah.
Woo. Yeah. That'd be all I would get is just hate emails or hate DMs about how awful I am and how I'm.
I think my favorite is the people that DM you to tell you they're about to block you.
Yeah.
You don't need to announce that shit. Just peace out. I won't even notice you're gone.
Russian stooge, you're a troll. I'm blocking you. Okay, I didn't ask.
They say the same freaking things every time. You're a Russian asset. You're a Russian honey trap. What was the other one? You're standing for Putin. You're Putin's puppet. And then of course, it's always like, what is the other word I'm thinking of? I never use the word because I can't stand it. But it's like when someone's kind of doing a scam or something.
Oh, grifter.
Grifter, thank you. I'm sorry, I blanked on that on purpose because every other, text or whatever.
It's people misuse it all the time. I don't think people know what it means. It means that you go out and you say things you don't believe in for profit, and that describes almost nobody I know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I would imagine like maybe somebody like a Cenk Uygur, he's definitely pushing an agenda for money. I mean, he got $24 million from, Democratic super donors and right wingers. So those kinds of people, sure. But like that gets thrown around to somebody like Rome, who does mutual aid in his community. How is that a grifter? He's not out there talking about things he doesn't believe in for profit. Or like for me, I'm not a grifter. First of all, there's no money. I don't take any money. I make no money. So how am I a grifter? But people just it's like these terms that they just throw out there. And it's so dumb.
I'm not making any money either. It's just ridiculous. But that's the narrative they want to do. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, you have people in CNN and MSNBC who are making millions, who are actually doing what you're talking about. And some of
politicians.
Yeah,
politicians take millions of dollars. Bernie Sanders, grifter. He's a grifter. He took millions of dollars from hardworking people who didn't have it to give. And then he fucked them over. He pretended he was going to fight for healthcare. He pretended he was going to fight for a lot of things. And he did. We're going to, turn the Democratic Party into a party of the people. We're going to stand up to the Democratic establishment. He hasn't done any of that. He lied to you and took your money. That's a grifter.
Mm-hmm. He lost me with this latest thing he was like just bad mouthing everything about Russia. Well, Putin. He was blaming on Putin.
He's been Russiagating. He Russiagated his damn self.
I know. I'm so disappointed with his. You can tell his team changed. You can tell he has team change, and I know that for a fact that happened. So like he
had Matt Duss as a foreign policy advisor in 2020. Like
he had what?
Matt Duss.
Matt Duss.
Terrible, horrible. Bad news, bad on foreign policy. And that's who Bernie Sanders hired as his foreign policy advisor. And that should have been a huge, for anybody who was still hanging on to Bernie Sanders at that point, that should have been like done. Big red flag, get out now.
They were trotting out Madeleine Albright. Well,
of course, Hillary Clinton's out there talking about Putin. Hillary Clinton has something to say. That
will give me a migraine. I swear.
Oh my God. God. She's out there talking about holding him accountable. Is she serious right now? You destroyed Libya. You brought back slave trade to Libya. Shut up.
Well, not only that, but she blames 2016 election. Okay, let's for your viewers, and I know there's some that are with me. In 2016, she did not go to Wisconsin. No. I grew up in Wisconsin on a farm. You go to Wisconsin. You go to Wisconsin if you want to win the presidency.
You go to Michigan. You go to places. You go
to places. You go to places and you really campaign. And she, has this vendetta about this world leader. It's and it's like playing through everything and our foreign policy as a nation. She's supposed to represent citizens, not like carry out her own, vindictive
agenda.
Yeah.
But that's how our government works. So they don't actually serve the people. They're working on their own agenda. And the agenda doesn't change party to party. It's all the same. It's just, I say it's a different cover on the same book. Joe Biden is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is Barack Obama. Barack Obama is George W. Bush. George W. Bush is Bill Clinton. Like they're all the same. It's all the same agenda.
When you saw the speech that Vladimir Putin gave, I saw that. Remember the tweet that I gave? And
you got trashed for it again. Again.
But like CNN senior reporter, a Politico reporter, another, I forget all these major outlets quote tweeted me, commented on me. I didn't even say his name. I simply said, this is the most powerful, one of the most powerful. And I thought it was a powerful, interesting speech that would make history. And it did. I just made an observation. I didn't say anything else. And I was just hammered for it. But what was interesting about Putin was he called out Clinton. He called him out. I liked that. He called out the whole Western propaganda machine, just like he did in 2007. It was a really based speech because he spoke what that for 8 years he's been trying to go to NATO and go to them. They won't even let Russia, NATO calls itself a defense peacekeeping. It's not. It's an offensive arm of the Western military. And that's what it is. And that's what he calls it out as. So anyway.
And he's right. He's not wrong, y'all. Again, he's been warning about this for ages. And in fact, and listen, people are going to say that I'm a Putin stan for this. He's been incredibly patient.
8 years.
Jesus Christ. We promise, no expansion. We've been we're surrounding their board. Like we're all up on his shit. We are all up on his shit. And he has just been chilling, trying to say, hey, look, you guys got to back off or things are going to get bad. He's trying to warn people. Nobody's going to win here. He's been incredibly patient, in my opinion. And I can't, he's not the good guy here. There is no good guy here, but I certainly can't blame him for pushing back against this bullshit. I can't.
I don't think it's about him. It would be anybody who was president of Russia. Yeah. Anybody who was doing their best to protect their borders and their citizens would be vilified by the United States. Well, whatever.
Of course.
So I think that's what we're dealing with. And I just wish that the US could get some emotional intelligence about war because it's not on our lands and our people, unless they're soldiers and they're deployed, we aren't directly affected by bombs falling on us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But if you engage with a sovereign nation that has nuclear weapons and is ready to go, what are we doing? That's taking us down a road. I think people are just so complacent. Well, nothing will happen on our shores.
Really?
Yeah. Fuck around and find out, that's where we're at. And, so I think the diplomacy needs to kick in here at some point because them cutting off diplomacy was the worst thing that they did. I think they learned.
Well, we need people in the streets demanding that because that's the only way we're going to get it. We can't appeal to Joe Biden's better angels. He doesn't have any.
No, I think they want that stronghold of fuel, of gas and oil, and they want that market. And this is economics, and it's all about oil and gas, baby. That's always.
That's why we have to make it politically untenable for them to continue this. We really do. Like, we have to get loud. Like, there needs to be people in the streets. I will say, however, this is just a side note, personal rant here. Every time in the damn wars, they have a protest that we are working with them in conjunction with Action for Assange. They're going to do an End the Damn Wars protest. We're going to do a Free Assange protest. And they, like, right now they're tweeting out, hey, in April 10th, we're going to be in DC. Come out, come out, come out. And everybody's like, oh my God, why are you doing that then? Why aren't you doing it now? It's 45 days from now, blah, blah, blah. Y'all, we've been planning this for over a month. This is like, and we don't get paid. It's not like we can drop everything that we're doing and like hold a protest right now today. If you want to do that, but stop shitting on activists who are organizing against war. It's disgusting. Stop doing it.
Also, you want to talk about we need mass mobilizations right now. Mass mobilizations aren't just happening now. They already happened. There was a national day of action against war with Russia that took place weeks ago now. And where was everybody on that day? Oh, that's right. Everybody and their mama was arguing about fucking Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And it's like literally that exact day when everybody was adding their 2 cents about Joe Rogan and Spotify removing some of his videos, like that day was the day that there was a national day of action against war with Russia.
And I guarantee you, not one person who is criticizing End the Damn Wars for not holding their protest right now today didn't show up for those events, have probably never been to an event, have probably never organized anything. They just are like armchair activists trying to shit on people.
Well, and that's the thing. Sometimes now it's hard to get, because of COVID especially, it's hard to get permits. And that's why you're not seeing any kind of real civil action a lot. I think a lot of it is happening online, or like, I would encourage people, citizens out there, to get a Substack, to write, to like get your opinion out there. I mean, I did it. I have the SoundCloud too. A funny thing, I was looking at my stats, and it gives you the locations of where, and it's kind of all over the world, Germany, New Zealand, different places. And then, but one of them, there was 5 in a row from Langley, Virginia. And it just made me laugh. I only listen. There's a group of dudes that probably are paying. They're like, oh God, we got to listen to her talk again. Shit.
Oh snap. Are they here? Hi guys, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Hope you're watching right now.
They might be here. Yeah, they might be here right now.
For them, because it's not like real. I'm not like a real dissident. I actually was a citizen that had something happen to me and just reported the truth. But
right, you're a whistleblower.
Yeah, I'm a whistleblower, and it's just funny that was the case. And it was just like, well, okay, put that in your file, Langley.
Yeah. Hi, assholes. Get a life.
I haven't seen anything from Edward Snowden. It'll be interesting to see his.
He hasn't said anything yet. Usually he's fairly quick on this stuff, but
he's right. I think he's trying to gather information to figure out what's happening,
which is smart. I mean, at least he's not like shooting from the hip, like just running his mouth about shit that he doesn't fully understand yet. Because I don't think really anybody fully understands. No, he hasn't tweeted for a while, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it's meant, what's happening now, especially what happened last night, is meant to be confusing on purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we have to stay grounded in the truth and what we already know, at least for now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to sound, but I didn't know what happened last night, but I'm not confused. They were talking, I tweeted about it. I said the U.S. is posting dates because they know exactly when this is going to happen. They're making it happen.
Yeah.
Forcing it.
Yeah.
What some of the reports are, and it's unconfirmed, and then later it was confirmed, and then I'm not sure. So I want this fact checked, but there were tanks that crossed the Russian border last night, right before all this violence happened. Now, it may be that they were still planning on going into these independent regions as well, but there was some skirmishes happening last night that were pretty intense. So I think we'll find out later what those were, and all of them have to be fact checked. But the thing is, with CNN and some of those other places, they'll just throw it up before, you know what I mean? Before it's actually.
CNN is just taking whatever the intelligence agencies give them. They're stenographers. That's not news. Like, you please. I know we don't tell our audience this, but please go tell your family members to turn mainstream media off.
Because they're going to well, you know what they're going to do? They're going to be doing a bunch of stories about Vladimir Putin, how much wealth he has, how evil he is, what his plans are. He's going to take over the world. He's going to start the World War III. And then they're going to go in and start World War III.
Yeah. And they've been building up to this. Russiagate was part of this. Like all of the Russiagate stuff, that's all part of this.
You know what's interesting? I was on Kevin Rothrock's show in 2020, and I talked about this. I said this would happen. Not specifically Ukraine. I just said specifically that the Biden administration would take us to war. And
yeah, of course,
against Russia. And that there was, and he was asking me, was there, wasn't this a time of peace when you were there and blah, blah, blah. And I, if you listen back to the recording, I said, no, there was a hostility threaded through, and they didn't want Russia to become an economic power. Here we are. Yeah. I mean, I just feel like sometimes some of us are speaking into the void.
Yes.
I
feel that.
Feels like that. But like, it's just, it's so obvious. Like and maybe it's, I don't know if it's because I was in it, so it's hard to see outside of it, but like the game is so obvious. Like I can see.
Well, I mean, I was never in it and I see it. Glory was never in it. She sees it. I don't know what it is that makes people more susceptible to fall for the bullshit. I wish we could figure that out so that we could figure out a way to cure it, because that would be helpful. But I think some people are just more adept at seeing through bullshit. Like I have a great bullshit detector, and I just think that there are some people who are just much more gullible and they're much easier led.
Or maybe it's just that they're exhausted. I mean, like, I think we're dealing with a pandemic, and people are trying to keep food on their table and jobs and like get their kids and figuring out school with their kids. And I think people are exhausted. I think the normal citizen, all of us, we're all average normal citizens, are trying to do our day to day, hoping that the government is running well. And it's a freaking circus. It's a disaster. It's corrupt. And it's overwhelming people. But I don't know if it's gullibility or just.
I think some of it is. I think you're right, though. I think that there is a large contingent of people who are just, they don't have time. And that's by design. Mm-hmm. They don't want you to have time. They don't want you to pay attention. They don't want you educated. It's like George Carlin said, they want you smart enough to run the machine. That's it.
Well,
they don't want you to question.
I think part of it is, and I think we touched on this earlier, but the fact that like there really aren't many ties to the cost of war, and like average people in America, they're bearing the cost of war, but in ways that they don't know. Yeah. They're not bearing the very kind of visceral and visible cost of war, like having your home destroyed by airstrikes or drones or shelling. Now, we know the cost of war in the sense of like all the money that's going to war isn't being spent at home. Fixing our roads is instead being sent on sending a Hellfire missile to Somalia or whatever. But I think a lot of people don't know the cost of war like that. So
it's an abstract concept. I talk about that all the time with like free speech and press freedom. That's not something that is in your face. It's not, oh, I can't afford to put food on the table, or, oh, I can't take my kid to the doctor. So it's a much more difficult thing to get people to care about, because it's not like directly impacting their lives on a regular daily basis. And I think that makes it more difficult.
Wasn't it chilling on that note? Wasn't it chilling when we heard Psaki say yesterday, I think it was yesterday, when she was saying, well, there's a cost. When someone asked her, hey, are fuel costs going to go up, and food, are we going to have inflation or super inflation? And she's like, oh, well, there's a cost to standing up for principle. It's like, really? No, not for you.
We're not standing up for principles. And you're right. No, not for her. It's not going to affect her.
No,
it doesn't affect the rich.
She's getting a new show. Did you hear that? She's getting her own talk show.
No. Wow. She works at the White House?
No, she's quitting. Obviously, she's resigning. Her next that she's going to have this television show. I don't think she'll be inviting me.
Come on.
I did like those three Fox articles where I'm calling her out and said she was a rape apologist. Yeah, she probably won't have me on. But
I doubt that you're going to be on the guest list.
You think so?
No.
It would be good to have like a little debate.
No way. She would never open herself up to that.
I'm Kat.
Never, ever. The people that come for you, you talked about this on Twitter the other day. They don't ever want to debate you. They just like quote tweet you, or they'll like quote tweet, or they'll retweet a screenshot or something of something that you've said. And they don't ever want to debate you on the actual ideas that you have. They just want to trash you and defame you and lie about you and all of that stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah, because they know I'm a nerd, and I'll throw up a bunch of stats and a bunch of like historical facts and be like, damn it, stop it.
Yeah. And you have openly said, hey, I'll debate you. Let's debate. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. And they don't ever want to do that. They just ignore that part.
Yeah.
It's great. And these are like fancy blue check people.
Wave my nerd flag high and like talk about real things. And yeah, no, they never do that. I try to engage it, cause like, I think who am I thinking of? Jackson Hinkle. Oh. He challenges people debates and they actually sometimes debate him. And I wonder, but the male reporters that I try to engage, they won't. Like, wouldn't it be awesome if Dovere and I could actually go toe to toe?
Well, yes. Part of it is because a lot of men don't like being embarrassed by women, a smarter woman.
Yeah. And like with Hinkle, they can throw sexist and racist at him. It's like, it makes them kind of low hanging fruit. Like they can't come at you and just call you a sexist. I mean, they might try, but I mean, it's not as effective. And I think that a lot of the people who Jackson debates are those kinds of people who just throw out like random, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't think nobody really ever wants to debate on ideas. I mean, even when Jackson debates people, it's not even most of the time it's not even about ideas. It's about trying to get like the best one-liner, like the best clip, who can get the best like dig in. It's not like an actual conversation about ideas.
Well, it becomes theater again. Everything becomes theater. And I think that's why I love Julian Assange so much, because there was a little bit of that when the way he would hold back information and release it slowly, but he did that more of a strategy to and also for his own protection, but also it was a strategy to give the information, let people kind of assimilate it and then move on to the next thing. You know what I mean?
Well, it's much easier if you dump everything on one day. First of all, I mean, logistically, that's almost impossible because it's like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of documents, just upload speeds and stuff like that alone. But I think also if you dump that much information, it's impossible. It's overwhelming. People won't even bother to look at it because it's like, holy shit, how am I going to get through all this? So if you do it bit by bit, I think it becomes more, attainable. People are not so overwhelmed by I mean, even the DNC leaks. Oh my God, that was like drugs for me. Seriously. Like every day I woke up and I'm like, oh, there's gonna be more leaks. There's gonna be more. And I was so excited. And then when it was over, that Dave Chappelle meme, you got any more leaks? Like, you got any more of those, Julian? Like, oh, so good. Oh, it was so good.
Did you notice how the Epstein case is now just buried? It's just
there was something. There was a Maxwell thing. They're gonna Eliza Blue, who I adore, and your podcast with her was awesome. Everybody needs to go check that out. So I'll here in a minute. I've already put a link to Tara's podcast and also her website, so you can go get her book, check out her podcast. But I'll throw Eliza Blue's link in there too, so you can go or listen to the episode with Tara because it's awesome. But yeah, Eliza Blue tweeted today that they're trying to do something with one of the jurors apparently in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial.
Of course.
So I think that they're going to try to get some shit overturned, or there's some like weird stuff happening.
Well, and also there's also the fact that Virginia Giuffre recently had that settlement with was it Prince Andrew or Prince Charles?
Yeah,
I forgot.
Prince Andrew.
But Prince Andrew, and then also Jean-Luc Brunel killed himself.
I
mean, the same way with the paper T-shirts. Are they that strong?
Yeah.
And then, magically in France, the cameras are off in prison. Magically in the
US,
off.
Yeah, what a weird coinkydink.
You saw my tweet, Misty, because I know you shared it when I just said, when it comes to sexual misconduct and hiding the names, the elites do not play. They don't.
No.
And like in my case, that's why I got death threats. That's why I wrote that op-ed piece for RT when I talked about, one attempt on my life about how they're legally tried to like put me away and all these things that they've tried. Because the elites don't play. Like, and when I saw that, I actually had like a little shiver of like, oh gosh, it's not comfortable to live under that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But yeah, so now we'll never know. He was going to testify, and we'll never. I mean, so what names are they hiding? Who's the powerful person they're hiding? I wonder.
So many people,
right?
So many people.
Yeah. But anyway, that got lost.
Of course it does. Like that's what I know that like this is important. This is something that we need to be talking about. We need to be fighting back against war with Russia, obviously, but also pay attention because they're going to try to slip a whole lot of shit into this news cycle. That's bad.
Like lost. Like Afghanistan, like Syria, like
Yes, this is what they do. I mean, they're going to try to sneak in a bunch of stuff while everybody's distracted. They do it all the time. That's why bad news always gets dropped on like a holiday or like a Friday night at like 6 p.m. or something. They are very good at knowing how to manipulate the news cycle to bury news that you need to know. So they're going to take advantage of what's happening right now and the fact that literally everybody is distracted and some bad shit's going to go down and is already going down.
Mm-hmm.
No question.
So tell everybody like more about what you're doing with the thing that's coming up, because you have these 2 marches now, and by then either the war will be not happening and there'll be diplomacy, or there'll be a war, and we might just have like a Cold War. But like, what's the details, and what do you need? Like, what support can we give?
So the End the Damn Wars protest, I am not in charge of that one, so I don't want to speak too much on it because it's not my thing. But basically it's just an ending of the wars. They have like a list of demands, defunding the military, all of that stuff, closing military bases around the world, all of those things. Basically we're just trying to revive the anti-war movement in this country because it's really
dead.
Yeah. It's really bad. I mean, it's in really bad shape. So we need to revitalize the anti-war movement in this country, and get people more active and more engaged in understanding what's happening and why. But then obviously the Free Assange protests, we're going to try to go to, I haven't finalized details yet, but I want to try to go to both the British Embassy and the Department of Justice. So we'll probably do one on April 11th. We'll probably do one of those from 10 to noon and then another one from 2 to 4. So we're just trying to make as much noise as humanly possible. I've been reaching out to some people trying to get some speakers lined up or just people who are willing to attend. I don't really want to announce anybody yet because a lot of people are tentative yeses. They're like, yeah, I think I can be there, but it is still a little early. People's schedules can change. So I'm trying to like just, throw out some soft invites and see. But I've had a lot of really exciting people who are interested in coming and participating, and I'm still going to be reaching out to more. But we're just, this is really just a continuation of this fight that we've been on for years and years now, trying to free Julian Assange and get people to recognize it. Yes, this is about saving his life, but it's also way bigger than that. And I think that people are still, I'm hoping, like I tweeted this out the other day, like now that we are once again being lied into yet another war, do y'all see now why what's happening to Julian Assange is important? This is narrative control.
Do you think people are getting it? I mean, are you getting deplatformed? Because I'm losing hundreds of followers.
Yes. Oh, girl. A couple weeks ago,
absolutely.
I lost like nearly 4,000 followers within a matter of minutes. Like poof.
What's going on?
I have no idea where they went. I don't know what happened, but yes, they just poofed.
Are these troll farms or these?
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know where they went. I don't know who they were. I do know that when I tweeted about it, I had multiple people who I'm friends with who were like, yeah, I'm not following anymore. That's weird. And I'm like, no, it's not weird. That's what happens. But yeah, I am heavily shadow banned. Like my follow count, I was gaining followers like at a very steady pace. And now it's like nothing. And I lose more followers than I gain.
For every say like 7 followers I get, because my account is still small, so it's very much like growing, but for every like 7 followers I get to keep about 1.
Yeah.
And like if you look at your analytics, it's this curious trend where followers will go up, tweets will be up or more or less the same, and then everything will be up, but the impressions will be down.
Yeah.
And it's like,
none of it makes sense.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of fuckery going on social media. And people need to also, another thing people need to also recognize, because I heard this, somebody said this the other day, people need to stop conflating corporate censorship with governmental censorship. No, that's the same. That's the same. Corporations are our government. That's the same.
Yeah.
There's no gray space. There is no gray area.
Government is run by corporations.
Yeah. Yeah. And people are still spewing that out. Like a lot of libertarians are doing that. Oh, well, they're a private company. They can do it. No, they're not. I mean, yes, maybe technically, legally, they are private companies, but they're completely intermeshed with our government. 100%. It is a revolving door. They all work together. Kamala Harris's communications manager or whatever used to work at Twitter. It's the whole thing. There's a whole thing where they all work together. I mean, look at the Atlantic Council with Facebook. I mean, fucking Henry Kissinger sits on that board. Really? You're going to tell me that it's not? And really? But people are still doing that, pretending like it's a separate thing from governmental censorship, and it's not. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah. tough times we live in.
It is tough times that we're living in. So, okay, I don't want to take too much of your time. I don't know how long you have.
I have another, I know you were hearing my phone go off. I have like another 3 minutes or so, but just wanted to say thank you. And then I would be more than happy to like come, be supportive by video. I'm not doing a lot of traveling these days.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, I've just had a lot of like kind of things go on, and I'm just trying to be, careful and cognitive of my surroundings. Yeah. But I want to be supportive, and I'll retweet all your events that are coming up in DC. And if I'm in the neighborhood, I will come by, of course. And if you want like a video thing pre-recorded, I can do that.
Cool. But, well, tell everybody where they can find your, I'm going to drop the links again, but tell everybody where they can find your podcast, all that stuff, because everybody needs to check that out.
Politics of Survival. I'm trying to book right now someone who would be really amazing talking about. She's really, really a very thoughtful person on the whole thing with Russia and Ukraine, and years of experience, and has the background. So I'm hoping that's coming out next week. We'll see. It depends on what's going on. So Politics of Survival, you can find it anywhere you find podcasts. Look at my articles on RT. I'm hopefully going to be writing something soon. It'll be up. And, and I'm at Reade Alexandra for my Twitter. And I'm also on Substack. And I might put out a little piece on Substack in the next few days here. So,
cool.
We'll see how that goes. And, just keep doing what you're doing. And then, of course, I'm speaking on the 27th for I'm speaking at the Women's Summit.
Yeah, we're on the same panel.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So you guys are going to be there, right?
Yeah, you and I are on the exact same panel. We're going to be there at the same time. I don't know Glory, what time are you?
I'm on a different panel. I'm on the 8:15 one on Sunday.
Oh, okay. So you're the hour after us then.
I think you and I, Miss, you were talking about domestic violence, right?
Yeah, or violence against women, I think.
Violence against women in general.
Yeah. Cool. I'm excited. That's going to be a lot of fun. So, and happy birthday too.
Early. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Happy early birthday.
Happy early birthday. Yeah.
Saturday, wish it on Saturday.
Yeah.
And because you don't want no bad luck. So, and let's hope we have peace. Let's hope that we're not trying to manufacture our consent for war. Free Julian Assange, because these times are exactly why we need a voice like his. That's my
word. Well, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. And we'd love to have you back anytime, obviously. Yeah. So yeah, it was good to see you.
Yeah.
To see both.
See you later. Okay, guys. So that was Tara Reade, who I love. I adore. She's amazing. Woo. She's so positive. Like even like in the midst of war, listen to her. She's still very positive, and I'm not.
I know. I feel so bad because like this is actually my first time ever being on air with Tara Reade, and I'm just like, yeah, fuck this guy, fuck this guy. I'm just like,
she's used to me. It's okay. She's used to me. I think it's fine. She puts up with my bullshit, so I'm sure it's fine. Okay, so we after talking to Tara, we do have a lot of Craig Murray stuff to talk about. His appeal was heard yesterday, which was a whole lot of shenanigans going on with that. Obviously, I mean, would you expect anything else? So I don't know. Should I just read the article that he wrote detailing what happened yesterday, because they didn't allow any public gallery. They didn't allow any streaming. Like there was no live stream it was completely done in secret. So he has a very long article that we can go through if you want, that goes through the whole process. I don't know if you want to go through the whole thing though, Glory. I don't know how you feel about that. It is pretty long.
I mean, if we got time for it,
I think we can we can knock it out in 20 minutes for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
Yeah, then let's go for it.
Okay. All right. Let me throw this up here.
Because all the stuff I have to say would be better suited for when we can get certain man on.
Yeah.
Or well, I don't know why I'm alluding to it, guys. It's about fucking Lolita. She might die. And like,
okay, wait, explain who Lolita is, because that
shit, yeah, not the plan.
Quickly though, because we do have a long article.
Lolita or Tokate is the orca whale. She's 56 years old, and she's one of either the second or longest held captive orca, and she's in Miami Aquarium, which is a ship facility, and they put her on 24-hour watch because she's in danger of dying. So I was talking with Misty about possibly getting a Jeffrey Ventre. Is that
Ventre?
Yeah,
Ventry.
Jeffrey Ventry on, who's one of the whistleblowers for the Blackfish case, to talk about
who
it,
I interviewed on Facts on the Ground, and you should go check that out because he was awesome. It was a great interview. I learned a lot. He's fantastic. And this is Glory's wheelhouse. Like, she's all into marine biology and all of that stuff. So basically, I don't even know that I need to show up for that one. I'm just gonna sit there. I'll just sit there. Yeah, I don't know anything about. I mean, I know a little bit from just researching and all of that stuff for when I interviewed him, but he was fantastic. So yeah, you should definitely check out that interview, and we're gonna get him on. It's just a matter of scheduling. So I'll DM him after we're done here, and see if we may have to do like a pre-recorded interview with him, and then just play it during our time slot. So if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do. I mean, whatever we got to do, I want Glory to be able to talk to him. That would be awesome. She can totally nerd out. That'll be fun. Okay, so Craig Murray, here we go. This is, again, apologize, it's a long one. I'll do my best to read it without fucking it up too hard, but you guys know how I am. Okay, so today I was the quote-unquote petitioner as my appeal was heard in court number 1 of the Court of Session by the Noble Officium. This sounds like something from Harry Potter, perhaps an annex of the Ministry of Magic, but is actually the Scottish legal system's appeal court of last resort. And if you're not familiar with Craig Murray's writing, there's a little snark in here, which I love.
Yeah.
He's a little snarky and I like it a lot. Okay, so here I sat very much as a last resort, getting through the last required hurdle before I can appeal to some judges at Strasbourg with no part in the Scottish establishment. 5 judges presided, headed by Lord Carloway, the bulldog-jowled Lord Justice General. See, there's a little snarky snark.
Lord Justice General, what the fuck?
Yeah, whatever. To his left sat the tall figure of the kindly-looking and bespectacled Lord Woolman, and further left Lord Matthews, who looked so strikingly like an old drinking friend of mine from Dundee that I kept being disconcerted that it wasn't him. To Lord Carloway's immediate right was Lady Patten, a bright-looking lady who had an air of intense concentration and took copious notes. On the far right, the bench was completed by Lord Pentland, very engaged, constantly leaning forward, mustache bristling, as though itching to do all the talking himself, which from time to time happened. All wore Gilbert and Sullivan costumes and long wigs that looked frightfully uncomfortable. I felt for them. Proceedings started. Listen to him. He's so nice. I felt for them. These are the people okay. Proceedings started 1 hour late. Lord Carloway opened by apologizing to the court. The case had been delayed, Lord Carloway stated, because the bench had received unexpected intimation from the Scottish government that a cabinet minister was coming to see them on an important matter. They had therefore had to delay and meet the minister before starting the hearing. That is what Lord Carloway said. I faithfully report it. He did not say the cabinet minister's visit had any connection to my case. He did not say it had no connection to my case. It might have been about judicial appointments, refurbishing courts, or COVID restrictions, for all I know, urgent enough to cause an unscheduled cabinet minister to dash and justify a delay to the hearing. Roddy Dunlop, QC, Dean of Faculty, which is a big deal among Scottish lawyers, head of the profession, then arose to present my case. Dunlop has a delivery of relentless logic driven home by piercing blue eyes, but disconcertingly has a haircut which must entail going into the barber saying, quote, Cliff Richard circa 1963, please, end quote. He's so funny. Dunlop's horsehair wig has to perch behind the quiff. Dunlop had been planning to speak for 2 hours, but interruptions from the bench were in the event so constant that he spoke for well over 3. I published the written submission he had put in and do urge you to read it. I will drop that in the chat in just a second. It is more entertaining than you might imagine. I shall not repeat here points he made from the written argument except where necessary to explain a judicial intervention. He opened by saying that this was a unique case. We knew of no precedent in Scotland for a journalist ever having been jailed for contempt of court. He then went on to say nice things about me, detailing my diplomatic career and positions I had held of great responsibility. He said I had become a whistleblower, revealing terrible abuses of torture and extraordinary rendition, and in that respect had given evidence in person before committees of the Westminster Parliament, European Parliament, and Council of Europe. The bench looked to me particularly unimpressed by this. I am not sure they like whistleblowers. I'm pretty sure they don't, Craig. Roddy Dunlop went on to say that I was a journalist who had published articles in many mainstream newspapers, but whose output was mostly published on my blog. That did not, however, make me any less of a journalist. I was fulfilling the role of quote-unquote public watchdog on matters of public interest as defined in judgments by the European Court of Human Rights. I had a genuine belief, which I still held, that Alex Salmond had been subject of a plot to prosecute him on false charges, and I had an Article 10 right under the European Convention on Human Rights to publish that as a matter of the highest public interest. That had to be the starting point for considering this case. Both Lord Carloway and Lord Pentland queried whether I could be considered a journalist. Dunlop said that the ECHR case he quoted specifically included bloggers as enjoying the same protection as quote-unquote public watchdog. Dunlop then argued that the test of strict liability in the Contempt of Court Act applies exclusively to publication of information which could interfere with a trial. It specifically does not apply to breaching an order on identification, where on the contrary, there has to be an element of willful disobedience to the court. He cited the act itself and several cases. Lord Carloway interjected that the act of publication was itself a deliberate act. That was my intent. Dunlop replied that there was no dispute that the articles were deliberately published, but that was not the same as that they contained intent to identify. Lord Carloway queried whether this could be true, even when the articles were obviously identifying. Dunlop said yes, intent was crucial. Otherwise, if, for example, a protected complainer stated that they had been assaulted in a taxi on a certain date and subsequently someone posted the taxi receipt online as routine public accounting for expenses, that person would be liable for jigsaw identification despite having no intent. Lord Matthews asked how the court could know if the receipt had been posted maliciously. Dunlop then moved on to the second ground of appeal, that the court should not have disbelieved the evidence given in my affidavit without cross-examining me and giving me a chance to answer questions on which they had any doubt. He described this as necessary to a fair hearing and natural justice. Dunlop referred to Lady Dorian's judgment, which stated the evidence in my affidavit case cast doubt on my claim to have no intent to reveal names. Dunlop stated that was far from a finding beyond reasonable doubt that I had intent to reveal names. The judgment had therefore not found intent to the criminal standard required in law. Lord Carloway said the court had no evidence before it that my affidavit had ever been accepted by the court as evidence at all. There was no joint minute to that effect, and there should have been. Dunlop said that indeed, it would have been better if there were a joint minute, but that could hardly be held to the petitioner's fault. Lord Carloway asserted twice more that there was nothing before him to indicate my affidavits formed evidence in the case, and Dunlop repeatedly asserted that plainly they were evidence. Not to cross-examine was the Crown's choice. So what he's talking about there is basically they brought information into the case that they had never given Craig Murray or his defense an opportunity to rebut. Yeah. They just were just nope, here, and there was no opportunity for them to refute those claims or, object to them in any way in the court proceedings. Okay, so Dunlop said I had given this evidence by affidavit, as was frequently the case nowadays. My senior counsel had then informed the court that I had nothing to add, but was available to answer any questions from Crown or court. Lord Carloway said that offering to answer questions was not the same as submitting to cross-examination. Dunlop said it was the same. Lord Carloway said no, it was not. I had not entered the witness box. Dunlop said that there had been no witness box. It was one of the early virtual hearings. I was not in a courtroom, and that may be of some cause of procedural confusion. There was then a slight break while I confirmed to Dunlop that counsel had said I was present virtually to be questioned by Crown or court, and both Prentice and Dorian had stated that they did not wish to ask questions. Dunlop confirmed with Crown Senior Counsel Alex Prentice QC that this was indeed what had happened. Carloway then said that witnesses were often not cross-examined in civil cases. It did not mean their evidence was accepted. He added that evidence, quote, may be so manifestly untrue as not to require cross-examination, end quote. I recall Lord Pentland saying this, but my notes say Lord Carloway. Either way, I had the distinct impression they were intending this to convey their opinion of my own affidavit as, quote, manifestly untrue, end quote, and viewed it as closing the question. Dunlop seemed somewhat thrown by the relentless negativity from the bench and the suggestion that my affidavit was so manifestly untrue as not to require cross-examination. He concluded that it remained his submission that where the defendant faced imprisonment, they had a right to have doubts put to them for them to give an answer that may change the view of the court. I think you should get to, if somebody is accusing you of something, you should get to defend yourself. I mean, it seems very simple to me. Lord Carloway replied that the Crown's skepticism of the defendant's affidavit had been fairly put in the Crown's written submissions. Dunlop then moved on to the third ground of appeal, that the court had adopted too narrow a test and finding that identification had taken place to a section of the general public, such as work colleagues, whereas the correct test in the act was to the general public, the public at large. Lord Carloway said that it was obvious that the complainants were all close to the former first minister, therefore very little extra information could identify them and great care should be taken. What if, for example, the parliamentary committee had been able to identify them? Would that, in Dunlop's opinion, be a sufficient test? Dunlop replied it would not. The parliamentary committee were not the general public and had a great deal of other information available. Dunlop stated that my difficulty had lain in explaining what had actually happened in the Salmon trial, what Salmon's defense was, while still protecting the identities as I had explained in my affidavits. Carloway replied that the mainstream media appeared to have no difficulty in covering the trial without publishing identifying information. Dunlop said that he would question that. The mainstream media published similar information to the petitioner. Danny Garavelli, in particular, had published a great deal of identifying information, yet none of these were prosecuted. And this is just to briefly pause so that we can kind of explain exactly, just in case anybody isn't aware. He was jailed for what's called jigsaw identification. So basically what that means is he published something, information that then led to the general public being able to identify the person he was speaking on, who was involved in a court case, and that they were supposed to be kept, their name was supposed to be kept out of the media. This is very vague. And basically it's not even just that you've published something that could potentially identify that person. It's you've published something that can be used in conjunction with other information. Yeah, that somebody else has published. And then they can use that to like put the puzzle together to figure out who it is. So it's like, you have to be personally responsible for figuring out what everybody else has published about a certain person so that you can make sure that you don't then publish something that could be used in conjunction with that to identify that person. Do you see how crazy that is? It's insane.
Yeah, the way it was kind of used, it like basically it would heavily restrict courtroom reporting.
It would destroy it. You would not be able to cover any court cases, because anything that you publish could be used with other pieces of information gleaned from other sources to identify somebody. I mean, how is that even possible? It's nuts. It's really nuts. And again, Craig Murray, the only person who's been punished for it. I can guarantee you that most every journalist working today. Yes, he's Julian Assange's friend and an active participant in the campaign to free him. I'm sure that's not coincidental. Okay. Dunlop had said the unsayable. The judges had all displayed simultaneous physical reactions to this, which in the nearly empty courtroom was particularly noticeable. Lord Carloway said that Dunlop had said this case was unique. That was because the mainstream media knew how to avoid committing contempt. That is why there was no instances of the mainstream media being prosecuted for jigsaw identification. Lord Pentland reiterated that the reason no mainstream media were prosecuted was because they understood the law. At this point, we broke for lunch. After lunch, we reverted to the question of whether I ought to have been cross-examined before being disbelieved, on which Dunlop had found another precedent, which plainly said so during the lunch break. Lord Pentland stated that it was a common practice for a witness not to be cross-examined and then for their account to be dismissed as incredible. Lord Carloway said it was frequently the case in criminal cases that complainers were not cross-examined by the defense on the grounds their evidence had no weight. We then went back to the question of what was the proper test for identification. Lord Woolham observed it was, quote, a tricky one, end quote. He asked Dunlop what then the proper test should be. This struck me as the first open question asked of Dunlop, not phrased in terms of overt hostility. Dunlop replied that the proper test should be whether, in combination with material that was already fully in the public domain, somebody had willfully published the last piece of the jigsaw in order to enable identification. Dunlop went on to give two examples. In the first, he stated that in their open and public opinion on whether my petition to the noble officium was eligible, the court had stated that I published that a complainer had been nominated to a named parliamentary constituency. This was inaccurate. Had I published that, and had the complainer in fact been nominated, we accepted it would indeed have run a grave risk of identification to the general public. What I had in fact published was that she had been unsuccessfully seeking nomination. That fact was not available to the general public and only known to a small number of people within her own party. I cannot explain the second example Reade gave without repeating information Lady Dorian found to be identifying. It was of a similar nature and relating to information only a very small number of people would know and which the public could not find. Lord Woolham asked how this was squared with Google. Dunlop replied that information of the class he was describing was not available to a Google search. Dorian was therefore in error to find it to be identifying. Dunlop then moved on to his fourth ground, that of Article 10, right to freedom of speech. Dunlop said that this case represented the biggest single interference with freedom of speech in the modern history of Scotland. There was simply no precedent for jailing a journalist like this. Somebody with no criminal record and a history of public service fulfilling a public watchdog role had been jailed for 8 months, despite having a heart condition and a weeks-old baby. Lord Pentland intervened to say that this could be because there was no precedent for the committing of such a large contempt. It was also in the unique context of the Salmon case in which there was unprecedented public interest and therefore unprecedented need to protect the complainers. That would explain the unique consequences. Dunlop said that to jail a journalist must be necessary in law and consistent with democracy. The law must also be foreseeable. It was impossible for a journalist to know what pieces of the jigsaw might be known to a small group of people and therefore to know if he was providing the last piece. Lord Pentland replied, that's why extreme care must be taken. Dunlop said that the care could become so extreme as to have a chilling effect, which made any effective reporting of sexual assault cases impossible, as we just said. Dunlop then moved on to his fifth ground of appeal, that many of the identifications found by Lady Dorian had never been alleged by the Crown or mentioned in the proceedings, so the defense had no chance to rebut them. This was heard in comparative silence. The Crown then opened, and Alex Prentice, QC, a dry and inoffensive man, spoke very briefly. He said that the Crown had already set out its position in its written submissions. I am told I am not allowed to publish these. The Crown had alleged intent against me, and the court had plainly found intent, so the question of strict liability did not, in fact, arise. Lord Pentland came in to help Prentice by suggesting a precedent case to him, not in the bundle of authorities, which indicated, I think, intent was not required. Pentland asked if that case might be useful to support his assertion that there was no need to prove intent. Prentice agreed and said, quote unquote, we had been discussing that very case over lunch. It was not plain to me who the quote unquote we were. On the question of my not having been cross-examined, Prentice stated that he had personally held a number of meetings with my then QC, John Scott, to discuss evidence. These meetings were covered by confidentiality, but the Crown had, quote-unquote, certain concerns about my giving evidence. It had therefore been agreed between the council that my affidavits would be entered and I would not be cross-examined, but this did not mean that my evidence was accepted. I was much startled to hear that. Prentice stated that on what was the correct test for identification, the Crown had alleged that I had embarked on a publication of a course of articles designed, when not taken together, to reveal identities to the general public. This was accepted by the court and no question therefore arose. I'm sorry, what?
Oh, I was just scoffing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Scoff away. Furthermore, the Crown had alleged that taken together, all of the complainers were identified by all of the articles combined. It was therefore not necessary for the Crown to have cited each individual example of identification. Lord Pentland said that contempt of court was a summary procedure anyway, so there was no need to consider these questions. Theoretically, what happened next was that Dunlop had a chance to rebut. However, he was so interrupted and overwhelmed by the bench that my notes at this point seemed to consist almost entirely of what the judges said. Lord Pentland said that Dunlop had claimed it was unique for a journalist to be jailed, but the circumstances of the Salmon case are unique, and it was essential that the identities of the complainers in sexual assault cases be protected for fear of deterring other victims from coming forward. Dunlop said we had always accepted that, and the Salmon case was also of unique public interest. Lord Pentland said that we were looking at a course of conduct by a person who Dunlop had stated was a highly educated man who had held responsible positions, but these were aggravating factors, not mitigating factors. He said that the need to protect identities had been stressed to the public and reiterated, quote, Mr. Murray's previous positions of responsibility are an aggravating factor in his conduct, end quote. Dunlop cited an ECHR ruling which stated that journalists should not be imprisoned except in extreme circumstances such as hate speech or incitement to violence, as Julian Assange sits in prison. In this case, the appropriate punishment would have been a fine. Lord Pentland said that this case was analogous. It's a long article. To hate speech and incitement to violence, and my sustained campaign to reveal the identities of these women could indeed have incited violence or social media hate against them. Dunlop said no such thing had happened, and there was certainly no such intent. Lord Matthews said that the protection quoted in the ECHR case extended to investigative journalism, and this was not investigative journalism. It said this applies to press offenses, but what was this press offense? Was I a journalist? Lord Woolman asked whether if I could be called a journalist. Did that mean just anybody could be a journalist who published on social media? Dunlop replied, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Dunlop replied, anybody who was fulfilling the role of a public watchdog, according to the European Court of Human Rights. Lord Pentland said that particular judgment appeared to refer to NGOs rather than individuals. Dunlop said it specifically included bloggers. Pentland said he thought it mainly meant NGOs, but they would look into it. Lord Carloway said that it was not plain that this was a press offense. In mainstream media cases, the contempt was always acknowledged and an apology preferred. However, in this case, a key factor in the sentence had been my quote, total and utter lack of remorse, end quote, which continued. Dunlop said it was my position that I had not intended to identify anybody. Lord Pentland said that it was a common practice for sentences to be increased for lack of remorse from those who insisted on protesting their innocence after conviction. Dunlop said my position was that I never intended to identify anybody. I had attempted to protect identities, and I believed I had succeeded in that. Nobody had, in fact, been identified, but I would indeed be very remorseful if identification had occurred. Carloway asked in a tone of incredulity. Why can't I say that word? Incredulity? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know why I can't say that word. If they were saying that nobody had been identified as a result of my articles, Roddy Dunlop said that it was indeed what we were saying. There had never been any credible evidence that identification had occurred. Carloway said he would find that most unlikely, and that was it. That is my best shot at a fair description up to date in court, leaving out anything said that could identify a witness in the Salmon case. It is, of course, my perception and a distillation of a full day, and in the circumstances, I can hardly be unbiased. It is not my fault the court excluded the public from attending and so limited your access to other perceptions. We will get a written judgment in probably around a couple of months. Of course, judges can be testing an argument or playing devil's advocate, but my honest perception was of real hostility from the court. I think you will find the above as a fair guide to what the judgment will say. My perception is that the judges' hearts were worn on sleeves today. The attempt to claim that my affidavits had never been accepted as evidence in the case is chilling. My affidavits, of course, state the grounds of my belief that not only was there a plot against Alex Salmon, but the politically corrupt Scottish prosecutorial system was part of the ploy. They list the documents I had seen in the possession of the Crown and which the court refused to disclose. That led me to understand the plot. They named Salmon's accusers and explained their roles, which part I have never published, and outlined the roles of Peter Murrell and Sue Ruddock. The links to Nicola Sturgeon are outlined. It is therefore unsurprising that the Crown had quote-unquote serious concerns about my evidence and did not want to cross-examine me in public and give me the chance to justify it. Obviously, it is more surprising that there is now an effort to claim my affidavits do not form part of the case at all. Carloway stoutly maintained they were not evidence. When we go to the European Court of Human Rights, those affidavits will be seen by judges who are not part of the Scottish establishment. But if the affidavits were never evidence in the case, then they cannot be presented at Strasbourg. How the judges can maintain my affidavits given under oath were not evidence, I do not know, especially as they are repeatedly referred to in Lady Dorian's judgment. How could the court judge evidence which did not exist? I have never had any expectations from this court, but this is the key point I shall be looking for in this judgment. I am afraid that I'm going to have to renew my appeal for funds to help with the legal costs. Fighting these kinds of actions is simply crippling. Your dedication to freedom and support have so far saved me from personal bankruptcy, but we now need to raise a further £80,000 immediately, of which we readers have very kindly donated over half. So yeah, he's already raised over half of what he needs, that £80,000 to pursue this appeal. So I'm going to drop the link for the donation here in the chat. So if you guys are able to donate, actually, I'm just going to drop the link to this article.
Yeah.
And then you guys can, because there's multiple ways that you can donate. And he's got like a PayPal, he takes crypto, all of that stuff. So okay, that was very long. We went over time. Sorry, Shane and Jimmy and whoever else is probably mad at us. But that was a very long article and very necessary to go through.
Yeah,
I think. My eyes very watery. Okay, so that is what's going down with Craig Murray. Unfortunately, that's the only coverage we're going to get of it because they did not allow any journalists,
any people into the courtroom,
gallery, or nothing whatsoever. A massive case with huge implications on the future of journalism, and that's the best we get. Seems legit. Okay, so if you can donate to Craig Murray, please do. Check out Tara Reade's podcast. Check out Eliza Blue's podcast, especially the one she did with Tara Reade. It was excellent. Glory, what do you have coming up?
Slow News Day. Check out Slow News Day every weekday morning, 8 a.m. PST, every Sunday morning, but not this Sunday, but every Sunday morning, 10 a.m. PST. Then Thursdays, this show, of course. And then Saturday, check out The Political Matrix at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, 9:30 East Coast time. I'll be filling in for my friend Marcus Cage over there. We got a shit ton of shit to talk about. And what else? There's something I'm forgetting. Oh, yes.
Sabby Sabs.
Yes. Sabby Sabs Women's Summit. I will be on a women activist panel at 8:15 p.m. East Coast time with Afeni Medea Benjamin and Kashama Sawant. So that's going to be fun. Trying to think of if I have anything else to promo. No, everything else is escaping me right now. I have a Hive blog. It's at Zero Eclipse with 2 E's. But other than that, you can find me on the ground and around.
Okay.
Yeah.
So only things I'm going to promo is I'm going to be on Nick's show, Socialist MMA, on RBN on Saturday, I think 4 p.m. So check out that. And then I'm also going to be on Sabby Sab's Women's Summit. I'm going to be on Sunday at 7:15 along with Tara Reade. We're going to be talking about violence against women. The rest of my other shit, I'm on Twitter. You guys know where to find me. Sometimes I remember to tweet about stuff. Sometimes I don't, but that's where I'm at. And we will see you guys all next week. Thanks so much. We love you guys.
Love y'all.
Oh, hold on. I almost forgot the outro.
Yeah,
you guys almost got robbed of the outro. Hold on. Here we go.